Joe Goodhew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, yesterday the Prime Minister gave a speech in this House that outlined the priorities for the National-led government this year. The speech was, however, an abridged version of the 9,000-plus word address you will find tabled here in the House. I can assure all New Zealanders that 9,000 words is certainly worth a read. A very good read, a very reassuring read. And this is why it's a good read, because it's a plan that sets out to improve the lot of all New Zealanders. There's not winners and losers. All New Zealanders are taken into account in that plan. It's a plan to move New Zealand into maximising the opportunities that we have to have a much more economically sound nation, Mr. Speaker. The plan also addresses aspects of our nation that have been, metaphorically speaking, holding New Zealand back now for many years. And we know under whose stewardship that was, don't we? This afternoon I intend to dwell on aspects of that plan that have particular resonance for me and for my electorate of Rangitata. 2010 is the year when New Zealand needs to accelerate out of the remnants of the recession. We've turned the corner, but there is much further to go. This is the year when those New Zealanders that have lost their jobs need to feel uplifted by a confidence in a government that is willing to change some of the baseline settings that have seen this country languish in recent years, when quite massive surpluses allowed us an opportunity to strive ahead. But we didn't achieve that. We didn't manage it. All of those squandered opportunities under a Labour government. The National Government's got a different plan for New Zealand. We're not able to utilise vast surpluses as Labour did, but we have a plan that will need to address the reasons why, as a country, we have been performing below our potential. We can do so much better, and we are ambitious enough to get on with the business. This afternoon we saw at question time a pitiful display from an opposition that just doesn't get it. They slate national standards, the very chance we have to address the woeful record of 1 in 5 students getting to NCEA level 2 and not making the cut. We cannot continue to deliver that sort of future to approximately 150,000 young New Zealanders. That's a failure that Labour might be happy with, but we on this side of the chamber are not. In the course of last year, I visited almost all of the schools in my electorate. I went to 34 schools, and some of them more than once. National standards were on the agenda for discussion, and when a principal or teachers didn't raise it with me, I raised it with them. You see, I'm not scared to talk to schools, to educators and to parents. I'm certainly aware that the parents of our nation, some 73% and more, want this. They want to know how their children are getting on at school, and they want to help in making it better. I acknowledge that many of the schools in my electorate are reporting to parents on student achievement, and I was heartened to hear and see examples. But National's plan to implement national standards won't change good practices in schools, but it will set a benchmark that's consistent across all schools, an expectation that the current level of school achievement is absolutely not okay. We can do so much better. I've been working constructively with the schools of Rangitata to answer their questions about national standards, and we do so in a very constructive manner, absolutely not ignoring the fact that there are some students, 1 in 5 in New Zealand, that are not achieving their potential. The educators admit it. The concept of national standards is sound. Measure achievement, then educate the students so that they make progress. The issue is not where the student starts from, it's how far they progress, and we need to use all of the resources at our disposal, and that includes parents. The children spend a whole lot more of their day at home with their parents, so let's use that resource to help them progress. We have always acknowledged that there is some uneasiness about national standards, but now is the time to commit to our kids. It's about the students, and it's about New Zealand young people, and we need to get on with it. During the Prime Minister's speech, he uttered some words that were music to my ears. John Key talked about unlocking resources that can aid our economic recovery. And what's more, this government's got the guts to get on with it. The natural resource that's most important to Rangitata electorate is that of water. The people of Mid and South Canterbury know it, and since my maiden speech I've been promoting its importance. So when the PM said that we will unlock resources for economic benefit and to create better paid jobs for New Zealanders, where this is also consistent with our environmental, our conservation and other objectives, my heart warmed. When the PM went on to reiterate that National will continue the reforms of the RMA, I could hear the cheering in the sheepyards, in the cowsheds and on the tractors of my electorate. When John Key went on to say that this year a national government will remove particular regulatory roadblocks to water storage and irrigation in Canterbury, I could hear the cheering in the streets, the banks, the businesses and the paddocks of my electorate. And then, but wait for it, and then I saw an article in a newspaper, an interview with the buddy MP Ruth Dyson, who seems to have had an epiphany. She was cheering on irrigation in mid-Canterbury, and I was scratching my head, and I thought to myself, surely not. This can't be coming from the very former Labour Minister who presided in a government that sat idly by, while resource consents got harder and harder to get, not to mention much more expensive. The same group of Labourites that spent most of their time decrying farmers for ruining the environment, under Labour, farming was still being considered a sunset industry. And I tell you what, if their approach to issues like tenure review, to heavy impositions of costs under the Labour ETS, and to the added compliance burden that appeared to be unstemmed under Labour had continued, well, actually farming might well have been a sunset industry. Fortunately, we have in our caucus a strong, sound base of people who understand agriculture, none more so than our Agricultural Minister, the Honourable David Carter. Another issue of importance to me is that of social issues. When I was elected, I vowed that anyone who could work deserved the satisfaction of having a job. Anyone who could work should work. The ill-conceived headline of the time read, "Beneficiaries beware Goodhew." But this view is based on the constituents who told me they felt trapped in welfare and wanted so much more for themselves and also for their family. Give me a job, just any job will do, some of them said to me. Now, I've heard that before, and I've heard it quite recently. I've heard it from our Minister for Social Development and Employment, and that certainly is her mantra. Get a job, any job. Get your CV in order. Get yourself the good feeling of being in work. And actually, now is the time, as we move out of this recession, now is the time for us to take that mantra on and to say we will deliver jobs to New Zealanders. We will. And part of that is by lifting educational achievement in our schools, building opportunities for New Zealanders. We will also work to increase the number of children from poor communities in early childhood education, and it's fair to say that that start to their education is vitally important and one that we share a commitment to here in National. But it's more than that. We need trades and skills as well. We will introduce changes that give secondary schools flexibility to run trades training programs and progress the youth guarantee so that 16 and 17-year-olds can get vocational training outside of school. School is not the right place for all of those young people, and if we trap them in there, all they do is interfere with the education of students who actually want to be there. We need to give them options that improve their future chance of getting a job and having a life that they deserve. In tertiary education, we need to drive policy that ensures tertiary providers deliver quality courses that are relevant to the job market. And by golly, have we seen some amazing examples of those that are not relevant to the job market. We need to work with universities to support excellence. This, Mr. Speaker, is a national government that has a huge agenda for 2010. We're really excited over this side of the chamber. We're really excited because New Zealand deserves things to get going, and under a national John Key-led government, it's going to happen in